It's not every day you can say that you're talking to an Academy Award nominee. Screenwriter David Reynolds penned the Garfield movie, which opens across the Chicagoland area tomorrow. He also wrote Finding Nemo. And guess what? He grew up right here on the south side of Chicago in the Beverly neighborhood.
I went to Christ the King on the south side, and then for high school I went to St. Ignatius. So I went there. And I always have to fall in with a lot of very smart, very funny people. And then you just had to try to keep up. Now, and I was very lucky. My family was really funny. So there were 6 kids in my family, like everybody on the south side at that time.
Yeah.
There was only 6 kids. So we had a small family. But everybody in my family was funny, and my parents loved comedy, and then I had a lot of cousins and aunts and uncles, and everybody was a storyteller. So it just sort of fell in that you just went to a party and you just gravitated to, stories. And that's how we traded information back then before the internet, right? And so you would just learn how to tell a story, tell a joke, tell something interesting. And, it just sort of translated once I got out of college. I took some improv classes down at Second City. I had always gone down there, and, being from Beverly, George Wendt was the pride of Christ the King, and and we knew where he was from. He went to Second City, so when I was like in just out of high school, friends and I would go down to Second City and see free improv after their shows, and then it just sort of always kind of stuck in the back of my head. And then once I got out of college, I was trying to figure out my work and life, and I just said I wanted to try this. And then no one, really did this in my family. But my parents were great. They just said, let's give it a shot. Let's try it. You don't want to be in your 30s or 40s and going, I wish I would have tried this. And I'm so thankful that they did, because there I met other people, and I started to figure out I could do improv. And then through improvisation, I learned how to write, because you're constantly creating stories on the fly.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I was very lucky. I ran into some people who are still my friends, and we've worked with a lot. I ran into Robert Smigel, from Saturday Night Live, and Triumph the Info Comic Dog, and Bob Odenkirk from Breaking Bad. These were all my friends. Gil Talley. There's a lot of people that you all know from television and movies.
Yeah. That
we were all just 22-year-olds just running around trying to do some fun stuff. So through that, we did a show in Chicago in the mid-'80s called All You Can Eat in the Temple of Doom, which ran for about a year and a half or 2 years. We did really well.
Yeah.
And through that, I was pulled to Los Angeles to try to get some work there. Robert Smigel went to, he went to New York to Saturday Night Live, and we've always kept in touch. But, and then things just started to evolve, and I started writing. And just to jump ahead, in '93, Robert came up, and I knew this young skinny guy who was up for a talk show host, and I jumped on board with Late Night with Conan O'Brien.
You went on to write Finding Nemo, again, with your collaboration with Andrew Stanton and Bob Peterson. And what I'm curious about, when you're writing this, all right, so you've already had a couple of hits under your belt here. You've had Mulan at this point, Emperor's New Groove. When you're doing a show like Finding Nemo, and I know I'm going back here a little bit, about 20 years, but when you're writing these characters, do you have who you want in mind for the voices, like for Ellen and Dory, or Albert Brooks and Marlon? Right. Are you putting these together, or is that just completely you're just writing it?
Well, sometimes if you're in the if you're on the project at the right time, you can say, hey, what about so and so? What about so and so? Right? You can kind of pitch voices. Or when I come on to a show, when I come onto a movie, they'll say, hey, here's who you're supposed to be thinking about. Dory is Ellen. And so on Nemo, it was really interesting. When I came on, I was developing another project for Universal, and that was sort of sideways. and I was like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? And the phone rings, and it's Andrew Stanton, and he says, hey, do you have any time to work on Nemo? And I said, as a matter of fact, I'm free right now. So, and he says, come on. He says, come on up. So I go up to Pixar, and, what was funny is Andrew and I had a long relationship from the time I worked on Bug's Life, And he knew that I like to fire ideas at him all the time.
Okay.
So he intentionally never told me what Nemo was about till I went up there. So I would ask people at Disney, I go, hey, what is this movie that Andrew, they said, well, Dave, we can't tell you. He won't let us tell you. Because he knew that I would call him up and go, hey, have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? So he put out a moratorium. I could not know what the movie was about till he was ready for me.
That's great.
So he said he wrote a couple rough drafts of it. He said, I want to get it out. I want to get the whole story out. And he says, then I'm bringing you in. And then Bob Peterson, who's this fantastic writer-director from Pixar, he did Up and a whole bunch of things. He's so smart. Anyway, so he was going to bring us on when he was ready for what we do, right? We just fill this out. So I come up and I meet him, and he's telling me all about it. And I'm all on board with the idea. And then he says, well, we have this other actor who's been doing it, but he's really good. And I'm not, he's a really good actor, but there's something missing. And so and Andrew said to me, funny enough, Albert Brooks was here yesterday up at Pixar. He was touring the studio.
No.
He has little kids. And he said, I want to, he says, I'm interested in, doing work with Pixar. Right. And so, they took him on and they showed him pictures and then they played him some stuff of Ellen DeGeneres as Dory, because Ellen had already been on the movie. So
okay.
Ellen was the first person that Andrew got on the movie because he had heard her do stand-up in this way that was just like where she kept forgetting everything. And he just, oh my God, that's Dory.
Yeah.
That's literally how he did it. And so they were showing Albert sort of rough sort of animation of Dory. And Albert Brooks, one of the smartest, greatest comedy writers ever, he says, well, that's all the comedy. You don't need me. She's the funniest thing I've ever heard. You don't need me on this movie. Why would I be on it? And, Andrew had to say, well, no, we actually have a part for you that I think you'll be really good.
And you're reunited with Mark Dindal, your new groove director, and you're writing alongside Paul Camplin and Mark for the Garfield movie, which comes out this weekend. And I can't wait to see this. It was kind of like,
fun.
Yeah, it's like bringing you guys back, and it's like a whole new platform. And you know what? Honestly, David, you're introducing Garfield to a whole new generation.
What's funny about this is just that. We all grew up with Garfield, right?
Yeah, right. Garfield and Odie, of course.
Yeah,
I hate Mondays,
Garfield.
and yeah.
There's a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids, from 18 or 15 down who don't know who Garfield is,
right?
Like we do, right?
Right.
So I hate Mondays and all that stuff. So we have some little kid, our neighbor is like, do you know who he hates Mondays? They go, why? I love Mondays. Well, you gotta reintroduce
them into it, and
we have to show you why he hates Mondays, right?
And what? So, yeah.
No. So just that's it. So the idea here is people like people like our age will go, oh yeah, this is him. He likes this. He eats a lot of his own. he eats all this stuff and hates Mondays. But then we had to create an origin story.
Of course,
because it's a 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because there's some reviews coming out going, hey, why can't he just be lazy, and why can't he just kick Odie, and why can't, like all the things you go because that. How do you make a 90-minute movie out of that?
Right. I want to give you an opportunity to give everybody a shout out, or anyone you want to say hi to who's listening to this.
Well, anybody.
all
there's a lot of people.
Because I know they're all listening.
Well, as you know, it's always been funny. I've been out here in Los Angeles and New York for like 30 years on and off. And I said, the minute I come in town, I run into somebody. And it's the biggest small town in the world.
Totally.
I don't care where I am.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to go, hey, I saw your brother.
You can hear the full interview on our website, WLSAM.com. The Garfield movie opens across the Chicagoland area tomorrow. Huge thanks to David Reynolds for his time.